Hello. Uh, Thank you everyone so much for joining us. It's great to see so many people coming in on a summer evening or morning or wherever you happen to be in the world. My name is Hilary Chasse, and I am the program coordinator at Asia Art Archive in America. We are the mini hub satellite sister of the Hong Kong-based organization Asia Art Archive, which has the mission to collect, preserve, and make available contemporary art from and of Asia. And we also hope to be a platform for dialogue and critical thinking about this art through this series of regular programs, which we would normally be hosting on site in our Brooklyn location, but unfortunately due to a certain pandemic that has been closed for a little while. But we're so glad to be able to continue this conversation virtually and actually have more people be able to join from around the world than would ever be able to join in person. So tonight we're so pleased to have Gaku Tsutaja, the artist, join us to share more about her recent video work, Beautiful Sky Golf Course. And she'll be joined in conversation with the curator, Maika Pollack. So I'm just going to very briefly give an introduction to this work and to the topics that Gaku is going to be touching on, as well as a little bit more background of both of our speakers and a quick rundown of everything that's going to happen tonight. So the video work, Beautiful Sky Golf Course, is part of an ongoing series called World War II Club by Gaku Tsutaja, which is based in part on archival research that she conducted last summer at the Fort Missoula alien detention camp in Missoula, Montana, which is where male members of the Issei generation, which is the first generation of Japanese immigrants to the United States, were detained during World War II without their families. These detainees were arrested following the 1941 attack on Pearl Harbor and were transported to Montana for loyalty hearings to root out so-called dangerous alien enemies. So I hope that many of you were able to view the full 22-minute film, Beautiful Sky Golf Course, before joining us tonight, as we won't have time to show the full film, but we will be showing a clip from the film in just a few moments. And then after the clip, we're going to be joined by Tsutaja and by Maika Pollack to discuss about this work and this broader series on the war and on the nuclear bombing of 1945 and its aftermath in both in Japan and the US. We're very pleased to have Maika Pollack be guiding this discussion. She's the director and chief curator of the Zhangyang Museum of Art and University Galleries at the University of Hawaii in Manoa. And she's going to help us contextualize this project in the broader history of anti-Asian racism and modern contemporary arts on both sides of the Pacific Basin. So to tell a little bit more about each of our speakers tonight, Gaku Tsutaja was born in Japan and currently lives and works in Queens, New York. She creates research-oriented, narrative-based works in various media, including painting, sculpture, drawing, installation, and video, as you've hopefully seen. She's recently been exhibited at the Shirley Fitterman Art Center in Manhattan, as well as the Gallery of Visual Arts at the University of Montana. And she has a current solo exhibition at Ulterior Gallery in Lower Manhattan, which is on until April 9th, 2020. So I hope if you're in New York, you'll be able to have a socially distanced look at her current exhibition, Spider's Thread. And she'll also be debuting a large-scale theater installation with accompanying video in El Paso, Texas in January 2020 at the Rubin Center for Visual Arts. And Maika Pollack, as I mentioned, is the director and chief curator of the Zhangyang Museum of Art and University Galleries, and is also assistant professor in art history at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. Before moving to Hawaii, she was formerly based in New York, where she founded and directed the activist gallery South First from 2000 to 2017. And she has a PhD from Princeton University in modern European art, and has previously taught art history at Sarah Lawrence, Pratt, and NYU. Her upcoming exhibition projects include collective publications, networks, collaborations, and residencies in between Portugal and Brazil, 1960s and 70s. And she will also be curating an exhibition with the artist Ken Okishi. So I'm going to, in just a few moments, start a short video clip from Beautiful Sky Golf Course. And then after that, Gaku and Maika will be joining together to discuss this work and the broader project along with some research materials that Gaku will be presenting from her archival investigation into Fort Missoula and other parts of this World War II Club series. And then at the end, there's going to be time for audience Q&A. So I would ask if you have any questions throughout the talk, please put them in the little Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And then Maika will be drawing from those for Q&A later. And if you're going to be watching this via Facebook Live, please also put the questions in the comment section of that as well, and those will be put to our moderator directly. So in just a few moments, we'll be seeing the short film, and then I'll turn it over to Gaku and Maika. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, I'm Gaku Tsutaja. Thank you for having me. Hi, Maika. So I'm on the screen. I'm not sure. Yeah. So this is the one of the historical photograph. Oh, the one back. And maybe for the front. Yeah, this one is good. So this is one of the historical photographs preserved by the Historical Museum of Fort Missoula. So when I see this image, it's really shocking. It's kind of a new image for me about the Japanese detention camp. I was very surprised because the combination of the Gulf and Japanese detainees, and it's totally unexpected and new. And probably there is no painting of this combination of history. So I really like, oh, this is a good idea, like to first think about this. And then next one is the, yeah. So this is I painted. It's a little bit, the composition is changed of the human before the painting. And then sky is dark, and then people looking at the toward the white flag, which is the symbol of surrender, metaphor, the surrender for the War II. And I already have that in this point. I decided the character of Japanese detainees is the next. So golf ball as Japanese detainees. So immediately with this character, I could imagine the animation. This ball is painfully hit and then fly to somewhere you cannot imagine, you cannot know. So that was the idea, and very satirical, and also question for the stereotype of racism, and also perfect fit to animation structure, because I can make a lot of slightly different faces and then film the photograph and then make the animation. Next.
Gaku, can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
And ask, so is this the golf ball that we see in the video that you created as well?
Yeah.
And then is it also, if I understand, on display in the gallery space, the physical?
Yeah. I will show the photographs coming later, but like I made a lot of faces, and some are just like one character and then changing the faces for the animation, and some are just the characters, like at least 2 or 3 for one character has it, because they have to move in the animation. So 3 is minimum to have the mouse is moving. But a lot of characters too. But this guy's main character. Next one I can show. Who is this? Is Maso Yasui, and I selected him as a main character for the story because his life was the extreme one who affected by the Japanese detaining history. So he came to he landed in Seattle in 1992, and he was 16 years old as a railroad worker. And his brother and father was already there too. He was a little bit weak body, and then he became chef, not the railroad worker really. But he wanted to be a lawyer, and then, but he didn't have the citizenship because it's banned by the U.S. So he couldn't have citizenship, so he couldn't be a lawyer, and then he tried to work as a cleaner in the mercantile store with his brother. He opened the store, like this building. But then it's successful with this store, and then he could have the farms and the orchard, and really successful businessman in the Hood River in Oregon. And he got 9 children and 7 grown up. But then next one is the image, the Pearl Harbor happened. Next. Yeah. So during the week right after the Pearl Harbor, more than 1,000 Issei men were arrested. Before all the families moved to the camps. The first one is the Japanese Issei men, and who are the community leaders. So basically, they're businessmen, officers in Japanese associations, editors of Japanese language newspapers, Shinto or Buddhist priests, and teachers in Japanese language schools. So those people who have the influential to the community, the Japanese community, they were arrested first. So they're kind of ages, and also they were living 30, 40 years already in the US, and then they have family. But they had to leave kids and then wife, only male go. And then next one, I painted this painting. The combination was the 2 images I showed in the last one, the sinking USS Arizona, the Pearl Harbor, and Franklin Roosevelt's infamy speech. So in the big history, in the U.S. history, Japan attacked the Pearl Harbor suddenly, and it was a bit late for the U.S. but there's a lot of stories, and I really interested in this background, political background. I cannot talk here, so like it takes time. So I didn't describe in this painting, but I did a combination of these two painting because maybe I'm imagining a few years later or 10 years later, or even like take time, sometimes take time. This combination will be, the meaning of this combination could be changed. So if I can explain, but if you have questions, Q&A, maybe we have time. But it's a lot of I say the artists embed like the kind of hidden meaning, or like the secret things, like something pressured facts are embedded in the paintings, in the history. It's always happened during the war, especially. A lot of the hidden facts are embedded in the painting, and then artists is try to convey that like in a metaphorical way, or like symbolic way. But if you speak out very obviously, you are arrested. That kind of history we have, and many artists challenge to it with the painting. And this secret is not that big for me because it's already Wikipedia. Just the major history doesn't accept it yet, but a lot of things are published. So this kind of feeling I have, and this combination is interesting for me to draw. So I did it. And next one, yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, because there is so much historical and archival research in your work, could you talk a little bit more maybe about that connection for you between drawing on these images and events, and also even individual historical people from the past, and bringing that into your work in the present, that relationship? Sorry if we could also wait with questions.
Individual and the history, you mean?
Yeah, I'm really struck by how deeply you go into the specific history of Japanese Americans in the United States, and how that informs your work, which also, as you said, inserts these kind of fantastical characters like the bears and the golf balls into this history. So it's not a sort of straight historical, obviously, depiction, but you are drawing quite heavily on archival research, and that really interests me as a means of working, and would love to hear a little more about that, and your thoughts on the role of research in your work. Hey, everyone, this is not of great interest.
Yeah. So a lot of research, how it's affected how I.
Yeah. Do you start by going to archives, or?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
First, I researched the history, but I worked with the history from 2016. Before that is like always I was work with the disasters. It's a long time, from 1995 when we had the great Hansen earthquake. I have already started to talk about the disasters with art, but like more more focused on myself, how I feel and how I change with the disaster, or what's the progress of myself, or like psychologically, or like that. Observe myself is more method. In 2016, is already I was here in the US 10 years, and then I started to work with this the Fukushima nuclear disaster. Because 2016, everybody remember, it's the election of the Trump. The Donald Trump became president. And I was in the MFA at that moment. 10 years already in Japan, in the US. But I was, my private life is messed up, and then it's really hard time. And then as an artist, I wanted to rebuild myself. So I went to the Purchase College MFA. And then on that first year, it's happened the election. And then all my classmates are crying so much. And I was so surprised with how the American citizen is like affected by American president election. It's that really happened in Japan. But then I was learning in America. And then on the same time, it's really weirdly, my father started to work in Fukushima. And then, so because he was a civil engineer who built the nuclear power plant, and then they has to rebuild the road near the disaster, and then he was the supervisor for that. And he just called me like on the election day. So it's kind of a coincidence, and I was so worried about him more than president. But kind of like it's the same moment. And then I was talking about the Fukushima. I started work on that. And then I couldn't fly to Japan immediately. So I was really, so distance make me start to research a lot. And also it was 5 years past already from the disaster. It was 2011. The disaster itself, but 5 years passed, it's still so much disaster and nobody can salute yet, and it's still now on. But then my father went, he reported me, how is it there, and then scary thing is going on still. And then that kind of stuff is, I start to research a lot, and then combined with my narrative way. So that was the starting point. It was not history yet. And then after nuclear plants, story, I decided to make the nuclear weapon history. And then, so it's naturally from the disaster, it's the beginning, nuclear power plant is related to nuclear weapon. So like gradually I started to go into history, dig to the reason why it happened, this disaster. And then
so when did you get to the Executive Order 9066, or the detainment and internment of Japanese Americans?
When did I?
That's after this series of events.
This internment camp series. Yeah, it's like I was working on the nuclear weapon history, and then suddenly I found out by chance this residency program. This is the new one, and then they just said like, here's the residency program. It's a apologetic, it's the advertised. And then I was looking at what's this museum, and then found out it's one of the residency in the many institutions in the Missoula, but they preserved the Japanese internment camp. And then I was already checking the Pearl Harbor's politics, and so it's really interested in that even it's not a nuclear issue, and I didn't know how I connect to each other this work, but it's the same issue, and then the beginning of the war and atomic bomb is the ending of the war. So I'm sure I need to work on this. And also when I see the photograph of the Japanese American wrote the alphabet, it looks like really not very nice alphabet Japanese wrote for the letter. I felt something emotional. Oh, it's like me. But so, and then, yeah, little by little started to know what's the Fort Missoula detention, alien detention camp is. It's a little bit specific because it's only immigrants, not second generation, no American there, no Japanese American, only Japanese who didn't have the citizenship. So I'm the one like that. I'm the immigrant, the first generation, and I really felt the Yasuo's feeling, how he at the end he suicide. So because of the paranoia, but really I had a sympathy. Like I don't feel I want to suicide, but like, it's kind of when you leave your home country, you move in America, and then you hard work, and then like with hope, one effort is very big, and then one step is very big for the immigrants. But then once you fail or something doesn't go well, like you feel so loneliness. That's what I feel like really here, and like also like edgy, very edgy, or like maybe like I'm stuck my life. So it's like I felt very sympathy with him. So that was the process. It was by chance. With the residency, gave me the chance to look at this history, and it was a little bit jump out from the nuclear issue, but still the same, and it's really related, and also related to myself very well too. So
let's keep on going. I didn't mean to hold up the slideshow so much, but thank you. That was beautiful.
So next one. Yeah, this is the suicide scene. It's really hard for me to express, but it was very important to put in this history narrative. So I did a lot of take of the film, many gesture trials, and in the performance, all my characters is non-human being. So basically any work, I cover the face. And then when I cover the face, I don't see well at all. So basically it's the condition of I'm closing eyes. And it's interesting, the point is the performance. It's basically I'm working by myself in the studio when I film by myself. Close eyes, and then you don't see anything around you. So it's really concentrate to your body, like movement. So when you close and then move that hands, like it's really where your hand is, it's really different from when you open eyes. And that's interesting point for me, because the blindness or like lack of body is always used the metaphor I used for my work. All my characters from 2007, all my characters are blind. And not blind, it's no eyes. So maybe they have eyes, but like just like people cannot see eye, maybe. Like that's it, but every character has no eyes. Meaning is different, depends on the context. So for this case, the Maso is even no head, is like showing the hanging himself, but also blindness for Maso was like kind of he was in darkness, hopeless, and sometimes in the radiation problem issue, like maybe people can imagine, oh, they lost eyes because of radiation, or if the politician doesn't have eyes, oh, they cannot see truth, or like that. So it's each character has the different meaning. Who is the blind, just no eyes sign, or lack of body sign. So that's what I'm doing with the visual one. Maybe next. So these are the sculptures. Yeah, Maika talked a little bit in the beginning. So these bowls are all in the film used. So one by one, I should have the little close-up, but you could see the close-up in the video. And the flag as the metaphor of the cylinder. And then golf clubs are the system of war. So it's called a nine-headed dragon. If I introduce grizzly bear as a president, and Black Bear as the Secretary of State, and Coyote as Border Patrol, and Crow is FBI, and Wolf as Inspector, and Mountain Lion is Attorney, and Bisons is Judges, and Badger as interpreter. So these are set of the system, and they hit the Japanese internet balls very strongly, and then they fly away. So that was the basic idea with using gold.
Can I ask, in terms of your own artistic influences, were there any figures you were looking to in the history of post-war art that led you to this relationship of sculpture to video? Or maybe I think about sort of object theater practitioners in New York in the 1970s, or certain other figures who use video and sculpture quite fluidly. What led you to this particular relationship of video, kind of theater, performance, painting, sculpture, and sound?
Yeah, basically I use everything except the photograph. It's really most I can do maybe photograph in the future. In this work, it's like one challenge was like using the actual site, like I filmed the real site. And before this work, I never used the real site landscape in the film. It's always something I create and then film. So everything is painting or sculpture, or I make gesture. And then so I think the painting is basically, for me, is a comic. So I grew up with the comic world, comic culture in Japan, and I really loved. And I just grew up. I learned everything from the comic, almost like history, like love or friendship, or like what's the meaning to fight, and sportsmanship. Everything is in the comic. So as a lot of Japanese kids learn about it. And then, so that kind of drama is all drama, and you want to know in your life is like in the comic almost. But then, adventure too. But then, sculpture is, I really like to make the objects from the childhood. And it's normal for me to make anything like robot, or like when I want to see the diorama, I want to make the diorama. So it's really natural to make anything 3D stuff. And then performance is, I think, very much, I'm not the person who perform in front of people at all, but I like to see my movements, use my movements, or feel myself as movement. Is influenced by martial arts. I was doing kendo a long time. The sword, like the martial arts, one of martial arts. I really loved it, and then I remember the bodies, remember the forms. So when I make the performance, I really think about the form, like the typical gesture, or what is the gesture, what is the movement of the body. So that everything is kind of natural format from my childhood. And then I didn't really grow up with art. Like, I really surprised American kids grew up with art. Japan is not that kind of country. Like, comic is more strong. Like, kids share the history, share the like narrative like that. So I grew up with those different stuff, and that's also my idea for the Western art history. The many formats combining is for the entrance for the variety of people too, because some people depends on culture. Japan is like comic language is very strong. In America, maybe some people hate to look at the comic, but they can see the sculpture or they can see the painting, because depends on culture, everybody has a background of the visual language, so you can communicate with that. So the multimedia is very much like for the variety of people. It's inviting many people. So I want to use many things. Whichever I want, I can do. Just photography is not in it. So this is in the film, sculpture in the films. And I want to mention the sound in this the round landscape scene. The applause and then cheers is the sound from the documentary film of Franklin Roosevelt's infamous speech. So when he started, like the people applaud and cheer, like that. So that sound is used for this. That's why Japanese internet is saying shh. So it's kind of like used that sound. And next. So this is the right side is the Japanese internet made actually to make the map of the beautiful sky golf course. So they named it. I really love this drawing. It's not exist anymore, only photograph. And it's really small photograph like this. And then I made this big painting. I really carefully remade it because it doesn't exist anymore. So it's one of my challenge, like what's the function of this painting? So the combination of two images of the Franklin Roosevelt and then the USS Arizona is one idea, and this is the like non-exist painting from the detainee camp. I wanted to exist in the history. So this is the scene in for the Missoula, and Ted Hugh, the curator at the for the Missoula, he helped me to find out the location, actual location of the golf course. So we didn't know, and the museum didn't know about where was the actual place because I needed to film. So where was the golf course? And we tried to find was the old map, 1944 map, and also the 5 photographs only was the Japanese detainees golf team. So in these photos, there's an architecture and a landscape, and then mountains never move. So I could find the mountains, and also like only 2 buildings around there like was still survived, it's preserved. So we could see the combination of the landscape, mountains, angle, and then the architecture. And where was the cameraman? The person who took that photo was sitting, like standing. We tried to find out, so I could find out actually. And then the uniform, and then they preserved the Japanese World War II era Japanese rifle. And it's not related to the detaining camp, but like I used this rifle. I saw interesting idea, the border patrol holding Japanese rifle, and then that's the my performance. I like sometimes I play around with the history, which is not the correct, exactly the truth, but like in the dream you mix up a lot. So it's like dream. In my work is like dream, and then try to find what's the point. But it's really I mix up a lot of stuff, and then find out it's interesting way to convey what's the point. Yeah. Next. Yeah, this is the studio view, little by little piled and golf clubs. Yeah, it's every day. Yeah. And this is the aerial view of the Fort Missoula. And there was no photograph the completed barracks. It's the next one you can see. Oh, actually the right side round circle part was the Japanese the golf course. It was a golf course. And next one, you can see the original photographs. So the photographs didn't show the condition the barracks all barracks completed. So I added because in the text there is a description. There was 30 barracks there, and this is the only one barrack for the Missoula is still preserving. And I could you filmed this like for the night scene too. And this book is specifically write about for the Missoula alien detention camp, not the general Japanese internment camp. Cal was the journalist, and she's still there, so I could meet through a museum, and then I could ask many questions for the detail.
I love the blue sticky notes stuck in the how that's your copy of the book. Yeah. Was that one of the camps, Japanese internment camps that Dorothea Lange photographed when she worked on that, on documenting?
Sorry, I couldn't hear the beginning.
Oh, I was just wondering, 'cause I know Dorothea Lange photographed Japanese internment camps in America in a series that was later mostly deposited in the National Archives and not seen until fairly recently. I was just wondering if that was one of the locations she photographed, or to your knowledge, or if that.
Oh, was this book the picture?
Oh, the American photographer Dorothea Lange documented some of the sites of Japanese detainment.
Oh yeah.
Was Fort Missoula one of them, or no?
I'm not sure. Not sure, because Fort Missoula is really no family there, and it's specifically to find a spy. So they came really they didn't stay long. Some would stay long, they had to, but most of moved after the judges, after the royal hearings. They had to move. Some could join to another camp where the family are there, and some has to move out to the different camp where you cannot join to the family yet, but you in a different camp.
I think Ruth Asawa, the Japanese American artist, was interned with her family in Arkansas, and then her father was in a camp in New Mexico, and she didn't see him for years and years during that time. Yeah, I understand. So certain individuals were
I think the most of famous photographs are with families, so kids and then women are there.
Yeah.
And those camps are not alien detention camp. It's the old kids born in America was not in the royalty hearings. They were not the people who was judged. They were discriminated, but they didn't have to court because they're American. They have a citizenship.
I understand.
Maybe next.
Yeah, you have pictures of them.
So this is the border patrols, and then this for the wolf was the gas mask and the rifles. Actually, these are tear gas gun. So already World War II era, they had tear gas and they're practicing it. But next, maybe you can go the original photos. Yeah, these are the photographs, the Fort Missoula preserve. And then for them, not for them, but I have to explain because I don't want to exaggerate the history. But of course, everybody's shocking with this image. The tear gas gun was already there and very timely. But actually, they didn't use for Japanese detainees at all. Basically, they're training for the Italian internees because Italians were young. They were visitors. they were the workers for the World Fair, or like sailors, like they just visited the U.S. and then war happened. So suddenly, so they couldn't go back to the Italy, and they were arrested. So, but Japanese detainees were 30, 40 years, they already lived in the US. So they couldn't just have the citizenship, but their heart is, they were American. So, but Italians were young and then very much energetic, and then they fight each other. I heard like they fight each other a lot, like for the like politic issue, like of their own country, about their own country. So sometimes like the fighting like happened or like that. So for that they're practicing. That's what I heard. So it's not really. So I was hesitating first to draw this, and then I put in this history, the narrative, but I decided to put in because this is what's in English. It's like same as nuclear deterrence. So we have America has a nuclear weapon because for the deterrence, and even you don't use, if you have it, you can push, like you can have power, and then nobody against you. So that was the theory, that was the excuse to have a weapon basically. And then this tear gas also, it's a strong weapon, and it's not necessary who are not armies. Like both Italian and Japanese are citizens, not citizens, but the people like who are not army, who are not weapon people, training people. So, but they prepare for this, like this kind of strong weapon. This is kind of excuse, and also their theory of have the people who has the weapon. And then that's not, that's really like a scary theory, scary idea. And then I also like this, because of they have this weapon, it's happened the current issue too. It's a lot of ex-borders issue. And then that this weapon exists from the World War II. And if something happened, they use this weapon. And that's the gun, the gun theory too. It's like just for in case you have it. It's really dangerous idea. And so that's why I needed to put this image in the narrative, even they didn't use for the Japanese internees.
I'm getting the 5-minute warning to.
Oh really?
Before answers. I know, isn't that crazy? It seems like we haven't gone through many of the slides at all. But I would say if you have questions in the public, you can put them into the question and answer chat box. And we have some time, so Gaku,
maybe we can go the next one. This is I used for that, and next this is a target, and then this is Japanese internee made this mysterious format of stones called stone fever. And it's really interesting is the next one maybe. I made this actually by myself too. It's called the stone fever, and then Japanese detainees made that. And this boat also Japanese detainee made this Italian gondra with the American flag colors. I really feel that they hope that the artist who made this, the Japanese detainee made this, has the hope to beyond the nationality. It's American flag color and then Italian gondra. It's really beautiful. And then this scene, I let the Maso, the main character, go to the cross the river safely. But White River is was this when I see this stone fever, it reminds me Sanzu-no-kawa is the Japanese version of the river Styx. when you die in the Buddhism story, and when you die, you cross the river. But when you die earlier, you have to stay in the shore first, and you have to pile the stones. And then the devil come and then crash your pile. And then, so you have to continue to pile and then complete the tower. But at the end, the Buddha come and then help him to complete, and then he can die, he can cross the river. But that kind of stuff, I remember because Japanese detainee were waiting for the judge where they go. So it's kind of waiting moment. So that kind of stuff I remember, I just imagine. Of course, they didn't think like that, maybe. It's my imagination, but subconsciously, everything, all the format is connected. So mythological or like subconscious level, I was imagining to why they made this like weird sculpture. It's a real one. Is they polish a lot, so it's very stones are very shiny and beautiful. And then this boat is like preserved in the history. The stone figures I remade because no original one there, but this boat is original one. So I filmed and then used in the Italian internees made this. And then it's interesting, Japanese and Italian were not good friends each other. And then because they're young and also Italian, and American internees were old, and also generations different, and also language problem, and then culture different.
I was just thinking, I think the Italian artist Alberto Burri was also detained in the United States during this period. But I was just looking, he was in Texas. But I was thinking that rang a bell in terms of people who were here at that time. Sorry, I have a truck going by, so I'm going to mute myself.
Yeah, but Italians are really Italian. They were enemy of the U.S. actually. And Japanese detainees, they didn't just have the citizenship, but they were American. So they were American side. Of course, the American didn't believe them, and then they tried to find a spy. So I think they are not good friends. It makes sense too. But then maybe next one, we have to really rush it. This is the royalty hearing scene. It's good. So this scene, all the story is actually the witness from the Minoru Yasui, who was the son of Maso. And he was an American lawyer, he became. And he was the one who fought for the Japanese American rights and also Japanese immigrants' rights too. But he said that like that's first for this loyalty hearings, because it's really this story. Like if you watch the video, you can understand it. How first is it? It's just American is trying to find the spy, and they try to trick with a very kids way. So it was first, and then so this is the actual court. It's reformed by the museum and senator. There is no photograph of the court, and also the loyalty hearings itself too. I mean, sometimes they don't, the court scene is not filmed, but at that moment, just they didn't have any photograph. But they found the museum, the senators found the truck of the nails. They could build the, how was the court table, and they made this with the map also. And then this is like
the museum itself reconstructed that room, not you.
Yeah, even there's no photograph about it. And when I see this, it's really, I wanted to paint this and also make the scene with the using that actual court. And then next to the Japanese internee, there's an interpreter. He was the his badger. He's the Korean. He was the Korean. The Korean interpreter was next to Japanese in the hearing court, and who barely speak Japanese. So, because American couldn't hire Japanese at that moment for the interpreter, so Korean was interpreter for Japanese, and then he didn't function now. But then there's no photographs, so I have to find out with the museum curator, and also the Carol helped me, who was in the judge, and I have had animals are there, judge, and then like attorney and FBI shadow. So half head is from the golf club shape, but it's really fit to, for me, idea. The lack of the half head is fit to the characters who are in the system. So they don't think completely. That's a satire for me.
This also did make me think of Kafka, Franz Kafka, a lot, and this sense of being
it's I really like connect to the past, those mythology or like the stories, and in the history, like artwork, also narrative, like novel, comic, everything. It's monsters and everything is come out when I draw. Oh, I have seen this like this.
You wrote something incredibly beautiful about the connection for you between Shintoism and European symbolism, which I studied, and that was really astonishing to me. I hadn't thought about those connections, but that for as someone who's half Japanese, to have a background in the Shinto gods, who are kind of almost infinite and animate, and as you said, very influential to manga, also makes you maybe sympathetic to certain ways that figures are portrayed in symbolism.
Yeah,
I thought that was really an interesting comment.
Yeah, I really like the old Western paintings and old Western mythology or like that. Not really contemporary after we have science. But like it's because with science, everything gone, like all the devils, gods, everything gone. But the old paintings, there is like almost very similar with Eastern. The people fear with the shadow. People fear the like devil. People fear the power like bigger than human. So that kind of atmosphere is there. And then it's really like I feel comfortable with those as an Eastern person. Yeah. So I really like to see the Western art history too, especially old ones like Goya or like Rudon, like your special. Yeah.
I think we are technically at the Q&A time, but should we go through the slides on the way there? Would you like that to at least show the rest? Yeah.
Yeah, just like go through. This is the show I juxtapose with. I show this work with the other painting, other works, which is the nuclear issues, nuclear disaster, and also nuclear weapons. I don't explain quite like, but this one is the current project I'm working on. It's the commission work at Rubin Center. Here I explain a little bit too. And then part of the work, drawing, is now ongoing in my Instagram, and then Out There Gallery Instagram too. It's about the history of a nuclear weapon from Manhattan Project to current, because a lot of nuclear waste is problems, and also uranium mines, where in the US are a problem for the Native Americans. It's a lot of victims, of course, like I'm including the victims of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but this is the history of both sides, Japan and America. So I like go over from the physicist who made the bomb to the victim of Japan, and then victim of America too. So Victim of America is the actual Hanford side. It's a part of the Manhattan Project. And then they had the nuclear plants reactor, first nuclear reactor in the US, in the world. So they have their Superfund site now to clean up. It's a huge plutonium waste there. And then all the workers suffered with the health problems. Not all, but like it's basically very risky. And then the problems or accident happen, it's hidden. So it's really a lot of cancers there, but like it's all hidden. So that kind of stuff is going on. And the Native Americans around there, and also New Mexico, they have in their reservation, there's a uranium mine, and then it's left it like as not, it's now one is Superfund site in Spokane Drive, and then but one more they have, and they suffered with the health problem a lot. And a lot of people die with cancer and then problems with health. So that kind of stuff is ongoing, and then but those things are not really told, and so it's really everything is covered very much. So that kind of stories I want to reveal is this mask idea. Is the Gigaku mask is the very oldest Japanese mask performance. But well,
so this is the current project. What's coming next? Yes.
So currently, Hotel Gallery, I'm showing the drawings and painting with to use this film, but also I will perform in the sculpture from now on. That I will make the 30 character of the masks for this, and then Enola's head itself. Enola, this is the actual size of the B29. It's Enola Gay is the B29 which dropped at bomb on Hiroshima, and then this is the actual size of the B29, the nose part.
Will you actually do the Gigaku dance performance yourself?
No, it's extinct. This Gigaku itself is extinct, and then they preserve the mask really few, like maybe 30 or something they have in Japan now. But the this Nara University, I forgot the name of the university, but they Tendi University, I think. They have the craft to remake that performance, but they don't use the actual mask either because it's too old to use it. But it's really mysterious. It's extinct. So many historians, some historians try to find what's the, what was it, but the form is transport to the No Theater. But Gigaku itself is just extinct. That's why I use the Gigaku, because it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's extinct, it's not exist. So I'm trying to use that format for the mask.
Questions are starting to build up in the chat, in the question and answers. We should get to there. How many more slides do we have, or is that?
No, that's the last one.
Oh, perfect timing. Wonderful. Thank you so much. We have some questions from the audience, wide-ranging. Somebody says, "Ohayo gozaimasu," so I guess from Japan, and somebody from Montana also sends greetings to you from the open air team. So you have friends watching and colleagues. And someone else, Midori Yoshimoto writes, "I love your fluid ink wash, which infuses your drawings with a dark emotional overtone. You've mentioned you like some of, is it Garo manga artists who might have used a similar technique, but is there any American or other non-Japanese comic artists you like?"
What kind of artists?
Non-Japanese comic. Or,
non-Japanese.
Yeah.
Oh, that's difficult. I don't know I didn't. It's interesting is my work is not typical Japanese comical because shadow is very strong, and then I've influenced by painting, so it's not really typical Japanese comic style, which is lines more emphasized. But I don't really read the American comic. That's really interesting point. I don't, because it's different. It's really different. Also maybe language problem too, because I'm very fast reader of the Japanese comics, and that speed is really, like, for me, enjoyable. But with the English maybe, but I just don't try. I have never tried American comic drawer, but I like, yeah, for the drawings, I, for the Western, I influenced by the art, not really comic. I'm sorry for that. I try maybe.
Suggestions of comics to the question and answer as well. From Cece Wu, this is really interesting. For Gaku, did you know about this history in Japan, or did you only learn about, I suppose, the history of the detainment of Japanese American Issei citizens when you moved to the United States?
Did I know already before, you mean? No, not at all. And then even, I'm a little bit slightly, I knew it, like it was happened, but I never think like that. It's interesting is in Japan, we don't really talk about this history. And I noticed it's like, it's the immigrant history. It's not the Japanese history. It's a Japanese Americans history and the history of America. That's what I felt about these problems. And then, of course, Japanese are interested in if I talk about this, but we don't really, not like widely people know about this history and or widely problems for the people in Japan. And I never heard about this when I'm in Japan. And I came to America. And then also when I see this residency opportunity, I started research it. So it's really, yeah, it's a good point.
Have you shown the work in Japan? And if so, what kind of response have you gotten?
About this Japanese internment camp series? No, I haven't. I hope. Yeah, I left Japan 2005. Yeah, I moved to here 2006. One time I went back in 2011, but 1 year I was in Japan when Fukushima happened. But yeah, basically I left Japan and I have not really have opportunity to show my work. And recently I have started to contact with people in Japan too, but it was really stuck with my life. And then for a while in the US, it was hard as an immigrant. And I was working in the community of the immigrants, construction job and the vintage store was a Japanese run. And so for 10 years. And just I built my life here, but it was, yeah. And then I decided to go MFA because I felt like, well, I haven't done anything as an artist. Yeah.
So actually, I wondered that myself about your relationship to the idea of the immigrant experience and detention more generally in contemporary culture, because I mean, you mentioned the gas canisters as having a very contemporary resonance, but it seems also these issues of detainment and migration and questions about civil liberties, it's also very resonant with the world in 2020 as well, beyond sort of the Japanese experience in America. I wonder if that, you know, those resonances have been something that viewers have responded to your work with from time to time, or
I didn't get the question.
I guess do people, when they see this work, tend to talk to you about the Japanese experience, or do people also think about the experience of other immigrant groups who are being disenfranchised or detained in contemporary culture or historically? Maybe no.
You mean myself?
Yeah, or for you or for viewers, those who see the work?
Oh, I like my story is first like it's all animal protagonist or like non-human protagonist. It's because I wanted to raise the race and nationality first. So any people can see the storylines, and it's not about the Japanese, or it's not about America. It's of course it's about America because very specific country. All country has specific problems, but this is very specific. But basically, my structure of the narrative is to open to anybody. So I want to always raise the race and nationality first. So if the somebody who has a tear gun, what you feel, if you kill himself, what you feel, that kind of like humanity is like first. So that's is that the answer?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There's like another, actually it's me, Midori Yoshimoto again does comment, oh, she thinks of Art Spiegelman's Mouse and the historical theme of the Holocaust in relation to work. So, you know, totally a different culture and time, but also sort of representations of oppression. And then this seems like a good question. I think we have to end pretty soon, but maybe this last question. Cynthia from Texas says, hello, will the exhibition in Texas also deal with the research that you did in New Mexico at Los Alamos?
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, actually, the current work is I didn't say Los Alamos, but Los Alamos, the Alamogordo, and the Wendover, where the B-29 pilot, the soldiers are training there. Wendover, and then Los Alamos I went to twice in Los Alamos, Albuquerque, and then Hanford site, and then Hiroshima, Nagasaki. I think that's all where I went. So those, it's good to go actual site, and then to meet people there, and then listen their story. Is first like it's you can hear the truth. I feel when I talk with the one by one, even they speak different things, like maybe like they don't lie, but like even like it's not truth. I feel like as a human to human is very important because I heard his voice, I heard her voice, and it's really affect to my passion or motivation to make the work. So I never forget if I meet the people, like what they talk. So it's really important to go actual site and then feel the landscape too, but then feel the people's what they're doing there. To Los Alamos too.
I think we have to end there. There are some other really terrific questions, including, have you worked with the notion of aliens in your work? So I would like to say that Gaku will receive all the questions and can respond to them directly, I believe via email, with the way that this is set up. And I also feel like there's so much, there are so many resonances between your work and research and my location here in Honolulu, and would love to talk with you more about that. But thank you so much for this presentation, and thank you to Asia Art Archive in America, and to Hillary and Takako for setting this up. And anything else, Gaku?
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for you. Yeah.
Thank you for you.